Hi Genevieve, thanks for taking some time for the interview today. So you studied civil engineering at QUT, is that right?
Correct. A major in civil and construction and a minor in business management.
What inspired you to go down that path?
When I was in high school, I really liked the physics and math subjects and IT as well. And I was always a bit of a nerd, I suppose, in that I like sci-fi and I like that whole world of STEM from a really early age, actually. So when I went to uni, I actually started an IT degree, and I really missed maths and science in that IT degree. So I transferred across to engineering the next year, but it's a broad first year at QUT. So I didn't really know what I wanted to specialize in. I had no idea really what engineers did at all. So we started trialing all the different subjects, and I remember being in a class where we were learning to create concrete and different concrete mix design. And my dad's actually a builder, and growing up with him around his construction sites, I felt immediately comfortable. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is actually what I want to major in. I'm going to be a civil engineer.
Right.
So I went in thinking maybe aeronautics or mechanical, and I ended up, doing civil. So totally left of center. I had no idea that's where I'd end up.
You mentioned that you've loved STEM subjects ever since you were very young. Did you have any particular mentors or inspiration, or was that just innate?
It was just something that I always really liked. I liked having an answer to a question.
Yeah.
So I like not having that open-ended, you could be right, you could be wrong. Like there was definitely a yes or a no with the STEM subjects.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
liked that, yeah, in IT and science, you could still be a little bit more creative. And in maths, I suppose, you
Yeah.
could bring in some creativity, but there was still always a right answer. And I think I really liked that as a kid growing up. So
Yeah. So now you work for a consultancy firm. Can you tell us what your role is there?
I'm a bit left of field for somebody that's normally a civil and construction engineer in that I'm an infrastructure and transport advisor. So I help government and private clients to scope projects and solve problems within their organisation in a really broad range of ways. So I work in project strategy, so actually coming up with how we're going to undertake the project and what the project should be, and also procuring the project. So going through and working out who we should get to work on the project and how we actually want to take the project to market and when. And I do things in that stage like financial analytics of um, getting budget allocation for big government projects, right through to actually interacting with the tenderers and contractors as they're coming in to tender for those works. And then I work in the delivery space sometimes where we're actually delivering the project. And at the moment, I'm actually working in a portfolio delivery role, so just managing a whole portfolio of works for a government client. So um, it's very broad and different, and each year can look extremely different to the one before. Even month by month, my jobs look quite different.
Any examples of any big projects you've worked on which we might have heard of?
Well, I've been really lucky in that when I started, I kind of went straight into major projects, is what we call them in the industry. So I did the Legacy Way Tunnel in Brisbane. Um, then jumped onto the Kingsford Smith Drive upgrade with Brisbane City Council still as well, to take that right through from business case to delivery, which was really fun. Then I did the inner city bypass upgrade as well. And since then, I've done the rail network strategy for Southeast Queensland, which is
Wow.
looking at the entire rail network in our little piece of Queensland and working out what we should do for the next 40 years of rail, which was really cool. Then
Yeah.
Cross River Rail, and now I work with yeah, no, lots of big projects. I've been
Yeah.
really lucky,
And busy.
and now I work, yeah, and busy. That's true. So now I work with the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. So we do disaster relief work. So working with communities that have been impacted by natural disasters around Queensland and helping them to rebuild.
Do you find you use a lot of your university skills now in your job?
I suppose because I'm in more of a consulting role as opposed to a technical engineering role, even though I review engineering drawings sometimes and I'm involved in writing technical documents, the main skills that I suppose that I learn are teamwork is really important. So I work across a really broad range of industries. So I'm often dealing with accountants and lawyers and different project managers in my role. And also things that you don't think are as important at uni as they end up being in the real world. So things like risk management, and how to manage your time really well and how to manage the time of other people is really important. So those little soft skills, I suppose, and having them drilled into you in each subject has been really important.
We know engineering is one of the most transferable degrees. Engineers can end up in a really diverse range of roles. Is that what you've found?
I was just going to say, my best friends from uni, we all did the same degree, we graduated with the same piece of paper, and we all work in vastly different roles. So,
yeah. And so they were all in civil engineering as well, so civil construction. Yeah, great. You've been quite an outspoken advocate for women in STEM in your career, from what I've heard. So just wondering if you could speak a little bit to that, about why you think it's important that women are better represented in STEM.
I think diversity in general is really important in any industry, and especially an industry like STEM where we're planning for the future so often. You want to have the broadest group of people that you can in that planning phase and that strategic phase, so that you're actually getting outcomes that suit a really diverse range of people at the end of your project. So I think there's a place for heaps of different societal groups of people in STEM, and the fact that bringing them in, you actually get really valuable different points of view that you wouldn't get if they weren't there. So women is one category, obviously, that is only fairly new in the STEM space in such large numbers, and it keeps growing, which is great to see. But I think if I lived in a world that was designed by one type of person, it would be a pretty biased space to be in. So having more women in that space actually breaks down the bias around the design that we're going into, as well as we break down problems differently, and we bring different skill sets to the job, and skills that I thought growing up might have been seen as weakness while I was at uni, things like empathy, being a little bit more emotional. Sometimes I love communicating, so I talk a lot, and those types of skills have been really valuable, but different to some of the other engineers that I work with. So, and I'd say my gender does play a role there too.
Yeah, really interesting. That's great. And obviously I think construction and civil engineering, to my mind at least, probably even more male dominated traditionally than even other STEM fields. Have you faced any challenges or barriers have you found in your career as a woman?
It's a really interesting question because I get asked it a lot, and I think construction, you're right, there's a probably more masculine space there, and a lot more stereotypes to break down in construction. But personally, I've never really experienced kind of obvious bias towards my gender, so being a female in construction. If anything, the guys that I work with are lovely, and the other women that I work with, everybody's been really supportive, and because it's different, they're excited for it, and I think they want more women on their sites, and they can see the benefit that it brings. So yeah, I've actually personally never experienced conscious bias. There's been a lot of unconscious bias, but that's often the type that you can kind of address.
Yeah. Great. It's really good to get those insights. What's your favourite thing about your job and about working in your industry?
I really love that no project is the same, and that every project is different that we tender for. And I didn't plan to work on these kinds of projects, and yet here I am a few years later. So it's the type of industry that has a lot of opportunities if you're looking for it, and in lots of different situations with a heap of different clients. And I think personally, I love that I'm benefiting society en masse, if that makes sense. So, I drive past the Legacy Way Tunnel and I get so excited when people are using it, like just so excited. And it's such a silly thing to be excited about, but to think that, those people are using a connection that we've created in the city. And the same goes for the Kingston Smith Drive. So seeing people on their bikes, and I had a barbecue there over Christmas with some friends, and watching people come past on their bikes and just really enjoying the amenity that that's created for them. And knowing that you're a part of that is really fulfilling, I think.
Do you have any advice for any young people considering a similar career to your own?
To stick with what you love. So the stuff that really lights you up inside at school is often there for a reason. And if you follow that throughout uni, you'll probably find yourself in a really good space when you graduate. And the second thing I would say is that networking in this industry is really important. So to get out early, university offers a really big range of opportunities to meet people in your industry, and also not directly related, but I have no doubt you'll run into them later in life in networking spaces. So to join the student clubs, to get involved in networking and to meet lots of different people, because that's kind of how I got my start. I didn't really know anybody in engineering, so to actually go to those networking events and meet lots of different people and find out about what they do day to day really helps you narrow down what can be quite an overwhelming experience in really picking what you want to do after university, because it is such a broad space. So being able to pick their brains and kind of map out a space for you, I would 100% recommend networking.